I'm your host, Jessica Shockley, and this is the Bold Foundations Podcast. Ouch! Don't let your insurance company add to the pain in your neck. It's time to lawyer up with Shockley Polino Personal Injury Attorneys. Store 727-498-8771 in your phone now. That's 727-498-8771. Offices St. Petersburg, Clearwater. On this episode of the Bold Foundations Podcast, boldly being seen for the real me, Mindy's story. Buckle in and get ready to hear some truth bombs and impactful wisdom from Mindy Quesenberry. Mindy is a certified life coach, business owner, wellness retreat leader, and yoga instructor. This powerful episode contains so many stories and topics that will resonate with many of you. So get cozy and join me as I speak with Mindy about her journey of overcoming social anxiety, finding oneself when navigating life as a middle child, turning pain into power, discovering true legacy and awakening, understanding people come into our lives for a reason and a season, listening to body messages, leveling up your circle, the power of gratitude and self-forgiveness, language precision, embracing your inner baddie and the beauty of softness, choosing authenticity over alcohol, and breaking free from the hustle. Please note, this episode features a personal story about a medical condition and should not be considered as medical advice. We encourage all listeners to seek guidance from qualified healthcare professionals when making medical decisions. Every individual's health journey is unique, and what works for one person may not be appropriate for another. If you have concerns about your health, please consult a licensed medical professional. The Bold Foundations podcast is for informational and inspirational purposes only and does not provide medical, legal, or professional advice. So I'm here today with Mindy Quesenberry. Hi, Mindy.
Hi, how are you, Jessica?
I'm great. How are you?
Fantastic. So honored and grateful to be here. Thank you.
I'm so honored to have you here. It was so cool to have the experience that I had for you when I went on my
Mhm.
first wellness retreat that you
Mm,
led. And I
mm,
got so much out of it. And then I got to meet so many amazing women that attended and yourself. So I
mm,
really appreciate that opportunity. It's really been a big part of this journey that I'm on right now.
Thank you. I feel sometimes like I have to pinch myself, that I get this beautiful opportunity to sit with other sacred souls wherever they are on their journey. And it was a true blessing and still is a true blessing to be in your company, and very grateful that I got to spend that really special time with you.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Mm, thank you.
So I know that when we were in Sedona on the retreat, we
Hmm.
all did a lot of sharing, and
Hmm.
you also did some sharing with us. And you had shared your story of your life, and that there were different phases that you walked through, and that who
Hmm.
you are today and who you're showing up as feels so much true to who you are. But it's not to say that who you were in the past wasn't true to you in the moment. But there
Mm.
were some significant shifts that happened, and I would love for you to take me back a little bit and with the people listening and sort of start as a child, who you were and who you wanted to be and what that looked like.
Hmm. Yeah, thank you. It's so interesting. We all have many stories within our grand story, and in those stories are different characters, different versions of us. Sometimes we have the lead role, sometimes we are the supporting role. And oftentimes we are in the background and just part of the scenes that are happening behind the actual scene of the story. And throughout that, all these different versions, I giggle a little bit. My husband says, well, first of all, he says he's a lucky man and I am a lucky woman. But he says, how many men get to be married to so many different women, yet the same woman at the same time? Whether that be my hairstyles, and those who know me kind of are giggling. But also, each version, at the time is authentically who we are. I look back as a little girl and often try to even bring myself back to that space in the present day, before conditioning patterns, behaviors, projections of people that I came in contact said I should be, or society. And we don't go unscathed from those things. Nobody does. And blessed to grow up in a home that I look back now that you know like any home, we all have our crazy, we all have our dysfunction. I've never met anybody that has truly come from a uh, I guess you call normal upbringing, even though my younger sister and my older sister, we all talk about how like we kind of just thought that was normal. We didn't know that it wasn't normal per se until somebody told us that it wasn't. And I think truly, just to preface, I honor my parents, my grandparents, my sisters, that each and every person that I've come in contact with my life, overall, we're all just doing the best that we know how. You know, I like to distinguish between the best that we know how from the best that we can. Very different, because we all can do better. And it's really best that you know how. And we are molded and shaped, as I am molded and shaped by my parents doing the best that they knew how. Often, I really fell into the middle child syndrome. And, I was a very bright, playful, I loved to dance. I was animated, but also very quiet as a little girl. And often created my own little world. And I don't know if you're familiar with the movie If, which is Imaginary Friends. And I recently watched it, and it really impacted me and brought back a lot of childhood memories. My mother was very involved in my older sister's life. And, my younger sister, Peach, wasn't, she was just picking peaches in the sky at that point. So I idolized my sister, and she had this great talent and gift for swimming and very athletic. And so there was a lot of attention given to her, and I was okay with that. However, I did kind of sit back in the shadows a bit, and no resentment at all. Current day, I think I did growing up have some of that and did hold some resentment, and it did cause a bit of dis-ease and discontent in how I felt about my upbringing. I look at it now because I think we have a choice. Now, for clarity purposes, we all are faced with some sort of trauma. However, there's a difference between big T trauma and little T trauma. I never had to face, hunger, or not being provided for, or, any kind of sexual abuse, anything like that. There were other things definitely that I think impacted me growing up. And this sense of not really knowing where I fit in. And, Brene Brown, who is somebody I really look up to as this mentor. She says that we all are born with this innate sense of wanting to belong. And that is so true. And I found myself growing up just trying to find out where I belonged and really wanting to be seen. And I think we all, in some way, shape, or form, want to be seen. And so I think that that set the tone for how I evolved in every version of myself. And often my escape was this imaginary friend world. And so in those moments that, as a child, and I had friends and, got along and played, and I was in dance for most of my childhood, teenage years. And in those days we could go outside and play. We didn't really, we had Atari and things like that, but really it was, you got home from school and you went out and you played. You didn't come home until it got dark, or until you heard your mom or your dad yell to come in. And so there was a lot of opportunities for play versus now, the kids are in front of computers or video games. So I think that that has really altered the way that our current day children are interacting with other human beings. You know, you asked a question and it makes me giggle. You asked, what did you want to be as a child? And we were a Disney family, my sister, and it was our vacation that we would do when we could. My father worked a lot, so did my mother, trying to provide and really just survive like many families. But we did go on Disney vacations, and I'll never forget it. I just loved the Disney dancers, and I wanted to be a Disney dancer. And I just said, someday I am going to be a Disney dancer, and whether it comes to fruition exactly like that, that's not always the case. However, I think in my own shape or form, I truly have fallen into that role as a magical Disney dancer. And in fact, I had the opportunity many times to be on stage in Disney and make that dream come true. And in fact, I live it out every day, So I think as a child, everything that we are exposed to, ultimately, whether it's good or bad, and I don't like to use labels good or bad, but for the sake of just explanation, it does impact who we are. And I look back, and of course, there's things that I would have loved to have been done differently, even myself, handle things differently, schooling, maybe some of the choices that I made. And though all of them don't have a bit of regret, because they have brought me to who I am today. And there was a point in my life where I did cast a lot of blame on those around me. And, whether it be anger, whatever that is. And, I think we're just all trying to navigate things. One of, I think, the things that I was seeking a lot in my life was because I felt so unseen. Middle children, that tends to be, because then Peach comes along and she's just this cute little bundle of joy who I absolutely loved. And then I idolized my older sister. I wanted to be like her. And then, ended up really being more than just a sister to Peach in my eyes. And part of raising her and watching her grow, I think I lost a sense of myself along the way, and really, based on that Disney dancer, almost took the performer role, and not in a way that it was fake or put on, but I also think it was a protection type of thing. You know, if I just help everybody else be healthy, be well, um, then it's funny because often the people that want to be seen the most do everything not to be seen inwardly. I know that kind of makes no sense, but so much sense all together. Um, Acknowledgement was really important, and often the things that we give out are the things that we want to receive. So I've always been somebody to affirm, acknowledge, um, and really celebrate others. You know, and something I think I picked up along the way with this want to be seen, want to fit in, want to belong was perfectionism. So that is, I think, a burden and a blessing all at the same time. It's all about balance, though, you know? So pretty much, you know, my childhood was really this space of wanting to be seen. I spent a lot of my life on stage. It was an outlet. It was almost this imaginary world, right? And moving through teenage years, gosh, I felt really imprisoned by, you know, and a lot of kids go through it. I had terrible skin. And of course, I'm sure some of the people in my life back then were like, oh, I didn't even notice it. But for us, it's so dramatic. And, you know, I didn't want to come out of my house. And I just had terrible acne. And that just added to this hiding, sheltering, and not belonging, you know. And I just found, you know, even a lot of my sister used to say to me, my older sister would be like, you just have all these all these friends and here and there, and one minute you're here and there. And you know, I feel like I had, you know, the definition of friends, it was very loose. I think I had encounters with a lot of people, and I think that had to do with not knowing where I fit in, and that was a struggle for me. You know, do I fit with this group of people, and do I fit with this group of people? And conformity, right? Just, well, okay, when I'm with this group, I dress this way, you know. And identity, really just not knowing my identity, and is who I am enough, right? We go into that enoughness piece, which is why I think that I'm able to connect so deeply on this level as a life coach, and with other women. It's just from pure experience, and it is something that will be with me for the rest of my life. Though recently, coming to really sit with messages and downloads that have come when I'm sitting in meditation, and my connection with God is, God never intended for me to fit in anywhere because I'm to be everywhere. And that's not an ego thing. That is just, you know, when we box ourselves in to a select crowd of people, or we identify with this, it limits us. It limits what we are to share, how we're to shine, how we are to be expansive. And, you know, I've been in this wellness fitness world for a really long time. And I realized that even though I was helping others come into their fullest physical expression of themselves for a very long time, when I realized and united my psych background, the physical aspect is minuscule next to the emotional and mental aspect of really coming into our true authentic selves. And really knowing that I spent the majority of my teenage years and adulthood, and even probably up into my 30s and 40s, just surviving, and really in a space of hustle. I was raised in a home that you work. I worked very early, and you work, and work, success, accomplishments, that's who you are. And that's not at all who we are. We There is nothing that we need to do in order to be. It's really about being versus doing. That's why we're called human beings, not human doers. It really is coming back to self-remembering. And I didn't remember who I was for a long time before the world told me who I should be, what I'm supposed to do, and how I am supposed to live my life, and what success is and what purpose is. And fast forwarding, because, we could talk all day about this, I don't really think I understood that truly until I had a health issue arise. I ran very successful businesses, and but again, with a hard exterior, protection, really not knowing who I could trust. And really, when we talk about trust, it actually really comes back to me not trusting myself.
Hmm.
And so many people say I have trust issues because so and so did this, or I've been this, or this has happened to me. And when we shift our perspective to this is happening for me, these are just, God moving people in and out of our lives. That's why I practice so deeply the art of detachment. And it's not that I don't get close to people or let people get close to me. In fact, I'm actually more open than I've ever been in my life. And I realized that in order for me to really connect with other people, I had to open my heart and trust, and really trust myself. And then I have a choice. We have discernment, right? And using our intuition. Gosh, I didn't even know what intuition really was or how to listen to it, because the noise of busyness, the noise of life, the noise of the limiting beliefs, the noise of the stories that I told myself about who I'm supposed to be, or caring so much about what other people think. And whether we can say it till the cows come home. We can say, "Oh, I don't care what other people think." That's complete bullshit. Everybody in some way, shape, or form cares how they are perceived, how they are in this world. I don't care who you are. That's really a protective defense mechanism. If I say I don't care, then it doesn't bother me. But you know what? Our bodies are energy. We receive, we give energy, and it lands. And if we just avoid it, it compounds and it builds blockages that can cause dis-ease in the body, which then manifests into disease. And that brings me back to when I was greatly impacted by disease. And God whispered many, many times, many, many times, this hereditary disease that has been in my lineage for a long time and in my ancestral chain. I knew it was there. And I believe and I know we all have disease lying dormant in our body. However, I also believe we are responsible for bringing them to surface. And I believe that I was the leading character in bringing disease to the stage. I wasn't listening. I was taking care of other people. I was in the hustle of business. And quite honestly, probably not living as my truest, highest, most authentic self. Again, not that I wasn't real or phony. I really was just on the hamster wheel of life. And then when you become sick, especially when you've created this identity for yourself, which really was prison, Mindy Quesenberry, fitness professional, uh, in the public eye, and the expectation, and other people probably didn't put the expectation on me. I probably thought they did, so I owned that. And I felt I had to look a certain way, talk a certain way, be a certain way, and really, again, built up these incredible walls. And what I didn't realize is I turned a lot of people off.
Can
There were
you,
people that were, oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, I was just going to say, can you share a little bit more with people listening? Paint a picture of yourself physically and mentally, where you thought and who you thought you needed to be as that
Hmm.
fitness and provider.
Wow. Jessica, that's a pretty profound. Thank you for asking it. I think if you asked me years ago, it would be a different definition. Um, so I'm going to try to just bring myself back a second and put myself in those shoes, because I'm just going to be honest. And this isn't self-deprecating. This is just from the seat of where I am now. So I'm going to try to sit in the seat of the witness to look at myself back then. You know, I was probably in the best shape of my life externally. Um, probably, and this isn't an ego thing, but this is just what happened. Is the first thing that you would see when I would walk in the room were my arms, and there was always comments or what have you, and um, but also the hardness of the body was also a hardness on the exterior and very closed off. I think more for protection. I've always been outgoing, um, and there were very few people that I let in, or very few people that really truly knew me from the inside. They do say that even people really who know you the best, we really only know 10% of the actual person. Isn't that
Hmm.
crazy, that
I,
percentage?
that's
Um,
crazy.
yeah, I was going back to childhood. One of the things that you would see and people laugh at now, like I was very well put together when it came to fashion, from head to toe, everything matched. I had a pair of sneakers to go with every pair of leggings, to the earrings, to you name it. And that does go back to a little bit of some of my show pony, I call it, years as a child. Um, you know, I was always dressed to the nines and made a fuss over with, going to church with my grandmother. And it really put this, and of course, cute, but it set this foundation that I now know present day was, in order to be seen, you have to look and be perfect. And everything needs to be a certain way. And there were so many times, Jess, that I just wanted to jump out of my skin, you
Mm.
know? Um, and I think it was an acceptance piece, whether I was around other women who were that ran in different circles, and I call those hustles. I always say when I'm getting ready to go and do something, like, are you falling into a hustle? Are you trying to dress for the group of people that you're about to meet? Or are you dressing for your own uniqueness? And I get, like, careers, and I know events, and I get all that. But I always say, when you're standing in your closet and it takes you more than 15 to 20 minutes to pick out an outfit, you're in a hustle. One, you're either in your head about how you look and feel about yourself, or you are trying to dress and present yourself for something totally outside of yourself. I got to tell you, present day, it takes me 5 minutes to get ready. And that is really a space where I can truthfully say, I don't care. I don't care how I am perceived. Um, Often Ryder and Brian, I'd come out of the bedroom and they would just roll their eyes and they're like, only you, only you. And I'm comfortable and I'm confident in what I'm in. And I think my outward expression for the first time in my life is the truest, expression of who I am inside, not vice versa. You know,
I think a
so
lot of people can resonate with that. I mean, growing up as a child, especially, you're trying to find yourself, you're trying to navigate different friendships that you see because there is so much individuality. And that can very much carry into adulthood. And if
mhm,
you aren't running with the same group of people and they're exactly like you may be trying to figure out, oh, am I aligned with that? Am I aligned with this? Do I need to act more like this? Or do I need to do this to feel like I can fit in? And I think a lot
mhm.
of people walk through that. So I think it's really impactful to hear somebody say that it's not something that you need to do, and it's more important to just be confident in your own skin.
Yeah, it's interesting because the people that are new in my life, they see things pop up on Facebook, memories, right? And one of my dearest friends, Jolie, said one of my videos popped up and she didn't really look at first, but she heard my voice and she was like, it doesn't even sound like the Mindy that I know. And then she looked at the screen and she wasn't judging me. She was just really tying it into who I am now. And she was just like, I looked and I was like, I don't even know who that is. And again, you know, I was on television, I felt, and nobody placed this on me but me. And that's a really big thing. When we become responsible and accountable for some of who we are or how we presented ourselves, your life completely shifts. And I really was living out my life in a way that I thought everybody else wanted me to be. And, you know, from the hairstyles to whatever it is, we're all just trying to find our way, right? And gosh, in that, you just get a little lost. There's probably so many people out there that didn't know, you know, at one point I suffered from social anxiety. Well, how can that be, Mindy? You were on television and you get up in front of all these people and you do all these things. But when it comes to closeness, you know, um, I didn't have a lot of that. You know, I had my imaginary friends, I had my imaginary world. And so it was difficult for me in social settings, you know, and then what happened is what do? We find ways to soothe that, you know, so alcohol came into play and not, you know, everybody's like, oh, you know, people, I'm not an alcoholic. And here's the thing, you don't have to be an alcoholic for there to be a problem with alcohol, y'all. When you use it to mask or to make yourself more comfortable, that's a problem. And that really is stepping out of the integrity or honoring and trusting yourself to be your most authentic self. Well, I'm not good enough, or I'm not going to fit in, or I'm nervous, so I'm just going to take the edge off a little bit, or I'm going to come home from work. And again, this is not a judgment space. This is me and my story coming home. Well, I'm just going to have a few glasses of wine to relax. Well, you know, that's a chemical, and we've got everything that we need within us. We get to choose and trust ourselves enough. You know, and I work in the mental health profession, and I know that's not the case for everyone. So I just want to state that, you know, for me, it was a disassociation. It was a stepping out of really dealing with the anxiety, the overwhelm, the emotions, the not fitting in. And, you know, it can become a problem.
Yeah,
And yeah.
to your story, you talk about using alcohol as a mask.
Hmm.
On Sunday was actually 4 months that I have been alcohol free. And that started as more just, I don't know if I really knew the true reason. I just think in the moment I was like, I just don't really want to do this. It just seems silly. And I was
Mm-hmm.
getting ready to go on your retreat and figured that seems silly to come home and have a drink after something like that. But what I've
Mm-hmm.
learned throughout the way that ties to what you're saying is I want to be able to dance on a bar, free and wild and as fun as I would have been with Liquid Courage. I don't
Mm-hmm.
want to feel like I need to rely on something to be that free and happy. I want to be
Mm-hmm.
that all by myself because deep down I know that I am. And I'm
Mm-hmm.
not saying that I'm there yet, but that's like
Mm-hmm.
that's my goal is I want to live mask and substance free and be that happy.
So again, trusting yourself, trusting that you are this beautiful divine being just as you are, and you can have fun and you can be authentically you. And, that was big for me. And kudos to you, by the way. Congratulations.
Thank you. And I had to share that because I feel like strength in numbers, when people hear, and again, to each their own, but for people that are out there that are kind of teetering on the idea of giving up alcohol, but maybe battling with, well, I'm not an
Mm-hmm.
alcoholic, like you said. It doesn't mean
Mm-hmm.
that you're what the movies portray as an
Mm-hmm.
alcoholic. It could mean
Mm-hmm.
it's just not serving you in whatever way that might be. So I think it's really cool that you are sharing that as part of your story as well.
Thank you. And right now it seems to be the popular thing, and I'm glad it's popular. I'm glad people are diving into a chemical free, mask free space. And again, I'm 2 years. This is my second journey with this. When I originally got sick, it was a have to, and went back, not a whole lot, but went back, and then realized that it really just was one, it wasn't allowing me to be expansive in my spiritual gifts. It wasn't allowing for me to hear God when I needed to hear God. It wasn't it caused more anxiety, the what do they call it, hangxiety. And for me, whether I had one or two drinks, it greatly impacted, it changes everything. That's why they call it spirits, y'all. you
Mhm.
know and literally, if you're in a bar and you aren't drinking, you can see the spirit of somebody leaving the body, one drink after the next. And again, it's not a judgment space at all. I just want to show up fully as my truest expression. And I want to be able to connect with my spiritual gifts. And not let alone how alcohol was impacting me physically. And again, I I am not even at this point in my life where I'm saying I'm never going to have a drink. I haven't placed that on myself. If I want a mimosa, I'm going to have a mimosa. I haven't placed this restriction on myself. And quite honestly, speaking of that, I have restricted myself most of my life. I've restricted food. I've restricted myself in a way of like restriction as of not enough play because I was too busy focusing on my external working out. And you know what I'm saying?
Is
So
that part of fitting in? Were you using that to fit into whatever space you
perfection
were?
more so.
Perfection.
That really goes more into the perfection, which then feeds into the belonging or fitting in. And you know, the other piece was I was seen that way, and I was seen in a um, acceptable way. Not that I didn't think the internal world would be acceptable, but I wasn't really even in tune with my inner world. I wanted these deep connected relationships, but I didn't even have it with myself. And until you truly get to know who you are, trust yourself fully, you can never really truly connect with other human beings. It's surface level. And I don't know about you, but I'm 50 years old, 50 years young.
Hmm.
We are our energy, we are not our age. And I want depth. I want women and men in my life that I can just authentically show up as myself. And when you are showing up as yourself, you attract those people. It's an energetic connection. What's interesting, and you find this when you quit drinking alcohol or you make any life transformation, and I know it to be true, not everybody likes it. Not everybody likes the new version of you. Some people liked me kind of hard and stern, and the Mindy who's like, I'm going to kick your ass in personal training and do it now and give me 20 push-ups, and the hard body. And I had a lot of people like outwardly say to me, like, I don't really know about this version. And I have to speak to that for a second because I think we can go from A to Z. And I know there was this period of time, and they talk about that as new faith believers in whatever you believe in. Like, at first, you need to lock them in the closet for a while, but why? It's exuberance, right? They want to share. Like, I'm sure you felt that with your healing journey. Like, at first, you're like, I want to share it, hence all these beautiful things that you're doing. Am I right?
Yeah, yeah. I think that when I first came home, I wanted to tell my experience of the wellness journey. And I would say that, my true good friends would listen and receive it. But I think maybe I shared with a couple people that were like, I don't know about all this. And
And
that's
they're not
okay.
intended. They're
That's
not
okay.
intended.
Yeah.
Yeah. I say that there was an analogy once, and I know I'm kind of squirreling all over the place, but it comes together. I went to a funeral, and you know, I would encourage people, these are celebrations of life. And if you really listen, there is so much wisdom when you are celebrating someone's life. And I heard this story about, when we're born, we're given this bus, right? And for a while, somebody else is driving your bus. You're just a passenger because, you can't drive as a little person. And you're basically told who's on your bus with you, right? This is on your bus, your mom, your dad, your grandparents, blah, blah, blah. Even some of your friends. Well, this is a friend of your mom's friend. This is their little person and they're on your bus. And life's journey is all the different stops in life. And sometimes people are going to be on your bus and sometimes they're going to be off your bus. And you've got your first couple seats, those are your peeps. Those are your lifelong riders. And they may even exchange in and out as well. And some people get off your bus, some people you kick off your bus. And I really realized just that, and it doesn't have to be meant with any kind of ill feelings or resentments. Sometimes people are just intended not to be on your bus anymore. And everybody comes in for a reason and a season, just like I come into people's lives for a reason and a season. And there is time of grieving, yet if there's understanding that it's divine, it's divinely mastered. And they were intended to be in my life for that point, and just speaking to, again, we can go to extremes sometimes, but then it's just bringing yourself back to balance. And there are some people to this day that are just like, yeah, I don't know what happened to her. I don't know, what's going on. And that's okay. Um, Maybe I make them uncomfortable. They say when you are on a healing journey, which we are our entire lives, we're always evolving. When you walk into light, you are going to trigger people that are sitting in darkness. And I don't mean that in a negative way, because we all really are reflections, right? Um, and you're going to trigger people, whether it's your exuberance or your joy or how you're living your life. You're either going to inspire them or you're going to turn them away. And, you know, that's on them. That's not on you. That's not for me to carry. And I used to try because I wanted that sense of belonging and acceptance. Well, what did I do? And, I've even found myself recently, um, and that goes back into the perfectionism and trying to be perfect, say the right things and do the right things and be all the right things. And then it loses its authentic self. Do I curse? Do I get pissed? Is my life all puppy dogs and rainbows? And well, it kind of is most of the time. I got to be honest. Who I am is who I am, but I still struggle. It's how I handle the struggle. Every struggle has made me who I am. The pain from the several years of immobility and the pain in my body, because you see the symbolism. The disease attacked me physically, which was my identity. It's who I thought I was, all I was, and what people saw. And in order for me to find my true self and come to the surface, God had to take away the one thing that I thought that I was in order to grow me and continue to grow me into the person He intends me to be. And so I find that part of my life a great blessing. And even though I'll be moving through that most of my life, I don't ascribe to any disease. I don't own it. I don't have it. I have a choice in how I live my life moving forward. And when and if it impacts me, it's how I show up. So that's really just how I live my life now. And I am a recovered perfectionist. I was a recovering control addict, but that also comes with other pieces. I don't know, you're kind of smiling a little bit about control. Can you feel into that a bit?
I definitely have tried to, I can align with perfectionism in the sense of wanting to control certain situations where I didn't want to feel abandoned or neglected. So it's
Mm-hmm.
more of a people pleasing. So I was a perfectionist and a controlling person when it came to that. And that's something that I've been working through and continue to work through. But we all, like you said at the beginning, we all have these things, big or small. I don't think there's really a scorecard. We all have
Mm.
been through something that we are meant to walk through that is only an opportunity to grow from.
Yeah. And that neglect wound and abandonment wound, whew, I hear you. you know, and you're so, so right. We all have a story. And, the part of me that is that fighter in me, right? That still exists, and I think some of the people that didn't buy into who I am now were like, where's that badass that I once knew? Oh, I'm still a baddie. I'm still a badass. And I just have to watch that I have balance, that I don't, in that perfectionism place, that I'm not presenting myself always in toxic positivity. Like, um, you know, yeah, I'm love and light, but I'm also badass. And I forget sometimes because of the perfectionism, the people pleasing, I try to make everything okay. And when in fact, there's sometimes I just need to say, you know what? No, that's not working for me. And I don't need to conform. I don't need to apologize for something that isn't mine. And we talked about that at the retreat, right? Apologies. I think we instituted like every time you said you're sorry, which is I work with people on language precision and how I'm sorry is so overused. And I had you girls exchanging every time you said I'm sorry, you had to say I'm sexy. And I
Which
actually,
sticks with me. I mean, I'll be at the
right?
grocery store and bump into someone and I'll be like, I'm sorry. Ooh, I mean, I'm
Yeah, I'm sexy. And they're
I'm
like, what?
sexy.
Yeah, and I did obviously, I borrowed that from someone else and I can't even remember. But it's, you know, we overutilize a lot of things because we want to bring we just want everything to be okay, and there's nothing wrong with that. But really just finding balance. And that's really how I'm living my life in present day, inviting in more play, more dance. In past retreats that I've done or engagements and speaking events, um, you ask women to stand up and you turn on a song, and some are like a deer in headlights. One, they're sitting in their shadow spaces, they're uncomfortable, they're not connected, or they don't embody their physical body. And that hurts my heart. You know, um, women thinking they've got to look a certain way. And I'm talking outside of health. I'm talking really just this really deep love for ourselves, and comes trust. And moving your body in a way that feels really good. We talk about tantra, which is something I'm getting more exploratory in. Tantric yoga, everybody associates it with sex. Well, there are aspects, but it's really about intimate connection, one with yourself first, and honoring your sensuality, which is your sense of reality, right? And once you can connect deeply with yourself, you have the ability and permissiveness to connect deeply with others. And I think, Jessica, that's what I was missing most of my life. I didn't fit in because I didn't fit with what was within. And once I really brought it back to myself and met myself and remembered myself before everybody else offered their opinions, or not even opinion, maybe neglect or abandonment, I was able to become wildly who I am. And I'm still growing. They always say if you meet somebody, I've sat with shamans and gurus and um, so many different healing practitioners, and, you know, honoring God within me, not outside of me, within me. I was able to walk more freely towards who I am truly intended to be. And I always say if you meet someone and they say they're fully enlightened or they say they've arrived, run.
Yeah.
uh, no, we're all just walking each other home. Nobody is before the other. I, however, I do place myself in the spaces of wise people. And I don't see them as above, and I don't see myself as below. However, I do see them as stepping stones for something they've got that I too want to experience or represent. And that's not because I don't feel like I'm good enough on my own. But do you ever and you've experienced this, I'm sure, like you just meet someone and they just pull you in. Like there's just something about them. They may not even have to speak. And it's the energy, it's what they hold. And I think that's the difference. When you asked me to describe myself before, and again, it depends on the people and their perceptions. We're all living out our life based on our own perceptions, right? Based on our stories, based on our traumas, based on it all goes back. There are some people that looked at that past version of me and were like, whoa, And then there were some people like, yeah, yeah, reflection. I guarantee the people I attracted the most were probably feeling a lot of the things that I was too, and they wanted to stay inside their own like in their imprisonment, and just everything was exterior. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but now I think the version of me that is now, I still, like I said, I've got that motivational baddie in me, but also a loving softness that invites the people in that feel that connection. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and it actually makes me think about something my husband recently said that he had a realization at a funeral that he was recently at. And he was seeing all of these adults in his life that he idolized as these perfect, all-knowing people because as a child, that's sort of how you look at the adults in your life, that they know everything. They've already gotten everything figured out. But in reality, we're always evolving. And he said,
Mhm.
I just realized that everyone is just a child. We're all just, if you look at everyone like a little child, they're just still figuring it out and they're just still growing. And I thought that that was a really profound
Mhm.
realization. And I think it goes back to what you're saying and how you can meet people in different stages of their life and how different and the same we can be in those moments.
Yeah, and I find myself really attracted to younger women, women my age, older women. And if I could, my one piece of soul setting advice for women who are listening, put yourself in situations with women that are going to level you up and be in it and check yourself at the door. Check and put in the coat room jealousy, comparison, and truly just honor, because that doesn't take any, other women don't take anything away from you unless you let them, unless you've got a gap of insecurity that you're not enough. That's when the jealousy, the root of evil can come in, right? Discontent, lack of joy. Check it at the door, but be around other women who level you up. Ask them questions. Take it all in. And those women, they won't be at all concerned about whether you are going to take something of theirs or whether I think so often, and I think I fell into this before, and I think I would not be transparent, but as a trainer, I'd be like, oh, so and so's doing that. They got that from me. Well, take it as a freaking compliment, you know? And I wouldn't be, we wouldn't also be truthful if we didn't at first have the emotion of, but then really sit back. Again, that seat of the witness. Well, they liked what I did, you know? And I think the only place that I had an issue with, and here's the thing, I probably didn't create it myself anyway. We're all pirates. We all steal things from each other. You know, all I say is if you're going to do that, then get all up in it. Ask. Ask the woman, ask the man, ask whoever. Like, can you tell me a little bit more about that? I really like that. And then also offer the acknowledgement, whether it's something somebody said. Earlier, what did I say? I'm like, that wasn't mine. I don't know where I got it from, but I got it from somebody. That somebody is going to listen and go, ah, they got that from me. And even though they didn't remember it was me, they acknowledged it. I always say, make sure you're representing it authentically too. You know, don't take something and not present it the way, and then give credit the way that somebody did it. Just really ask, and we all feel like we've got to, like people owe us things. What we owe is authentic connection and asking. You and I have had some really lovely conversations, and if there's something that landed on you, I love that you may take it with you. We're just picking up nuggets along the way, right? And if you pick up a nugget of something I've said or something I've done, I've probably picked it up from somebody else. And aren't we all just walking each other home, right? We're paying it forward. And the moment we let our ego get in the way is the moment shit goes crazy. So I always just take a breath, sit back, ask, what am I feeling here? What am I feeling? Why has this sparked, activated, triggered is a big word these days. Underneath it, there's something from your past, something from your story. And then often, you come across people, why is this elevating me or activating me? 9 times out of 10, you're seeing an old version of yourself that probably annoys the shit out of you, right? Not that you were annoying then, but it's just something maybe you've moved through and you recognize it and you're like, oh, like I just, you know, maybe you encounter somebody that's really loud or really draws the attention to themselves and they really freaking annoy you. I don't care who you are. Yes, even me. People annoy me. Um, I love everybody. People ignore me. There's some people's energies that just don't work. I sit back and I go, wow, I'm pretty sure I just saw a version of myself at one point in time. And that's why, like, I've moved through this, or it's coming back up to remind me, okay, stay in your work, move through. It'll also, it's an opportunity for you to lovingly and compassionately step into somebody else's story. Why are they loud? Why do they want the center of attention? And then you get to know them and you ask questions, and maybe they weren't seen as a child, or they didn't feel heard, or they felt they were told they had to be quiet. It all leads back.
I'm so glad that you brought that up because I would say one of the biggest things that I brought home from the wellness retreat was the ability to just sit with myself and give myself self-reflection because today's society doesn't give us the opportunity to do that, or at least we're sort of conditioned to think that we don't have the opportunity to do that. And there were so many opportunities and there were so many prompts from you to do
Mm-hmm.
that. You provided us this great template to help us guide us through this daily practice of self reflection and journaling.
Mm-hmm.
And then, even your sister Peach, when I came into that retreat, I had shared with you that I was very guarded.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't realize that other people knew that I was guarded. And again, I didn't
Right?
because I've never given myself the time to sit and think about it. I mean, I never really sat and asked myself questions before in the quiet. So in my head, I'm thinking, I don't know about all this stuff. And I have no idea that people are feeling that from me. And, as the week went on and you guys created such an amazing space for me to let that guard down and really open up and be with my real self, your sister came to me and she said, actually, you know what? This was before I started to let my guard down. She said, yeah, I know you. You are me X amount of years ago. I see right through you.
Mm-hmm.
And this is just a wall you're putting up.
Mm-hmm.
And there's more to you behind that. And it was like, holy crap. How does she know that? you know?
Well, she recognized herself in you, the mirror, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And what you began to experience that you already know and are speaking to, you started to recognize your shadows. Shadow work is profound. And whether I labeled it that during the retreat, we did a lot of shadow work. We did a lot of inner child work. And these are the parts that we reject about ourselves. These are the parts that we hide. And then it's all of the things that we do to protect ourselves. And we often, you're right, we can't see it for
Yeah,
ourselves.
no idea.
And
Yep.
no idea. And one of the most profound pieces, and it wasn't in this sisterhood retreat, it was in the previous one. I gave them homework to do during the week. And I said, I want you to pick three people that will tell you the absolute truth.
Hmm.
Ask them how they see you. And so many people were blown away. And I'm still blown away. There's some times where people will say, I just recently had my friend Kim um, associate me with something and someone, and I was like, huh, that's interesting. Like that somebody sees me like that. And I was recently at the Debbie Gibson concert. Yes, Debbie Gibson. And she's like, oh my God, that's like that's like Mindy on stage. And I mean, like, she was wild, right? And I was like, and I thought about it, and she just, when we got into the car, I mean, she's 55 years old, and let me tell you, busting a move and just doing her thing and just adorable. And we got in the car, and she started to explain more because I immediately went to an exterior space. I went to what she was putting out, how, like, you know, and where Kim was saying, within me, there's a vibrancy, there is this wildness and boldness and living life to the fullest, unapologetically myself. But my brain, I was in a totally other space. And at first, and I wasn't like, what do you mean? But I just wasn't connecting to it. And so when you really listen to how, and again, not that other people's opinions matter, but I'm talking about people that really know you, what they what they feel from you. It's pretty impactful because we totally see ourselves way differently. At least when we're not on our journey of healing, I should say. Because I can pretty much can identify with who I am now. Before, I was so closed off I couldn't even tell you who I was or what I wanted or
But what I
you
love
know.
about you and even your story about your friend sharing that with you is your vibrance that you have, that you is so true to you, just goes back to the most purest form of who you were as a child. And, I can just picture you when you shared stories at the retreat or even now, just like dancing, and you shared about how that was your happy place. And then, this morning I'm on scrolling through my feed and I see you dancing in the morning this morning. And I think it's really important to give yourself time to think about what did give you the purest form of joy as a child, at your most innocent, purest time in your life. And you are just living proof of that.
Mm, thank you. Thank you so much. I think somebody asked me at one point where they said, your life can't be like this all the time. And I'm like, well, of course not. I mean, I've got struggles. There's moments where I'm not that I, am not puppy dolls and rainbows that Ryder and, Brian call it all my shamalama ding dong stuff that I do. Am I always meditating? Am I always in this joyful bliss? Always is a very strong word. The answer would be no. And I will say the majority time, yeah. And when I'm not, it's because I've allowed myself to buy into a story. And it's awareness. The key is awareness, self actualization, being aware. And the minute I'm aware that my hurt little girl has shown up, or any of my judgments, I'm able to grab a hold of it. And again, that perfection piece still comes up constantly. And here's the thing, these things are going to keep coming back because you still have work to do.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
We often hear, why does this keep happening to me? It's not happening to you, it's happening for you. Wake the hell up, you know,
Yeah.
open your eyes. Um, the other piece of that, when this disease came on, I sat with a shaman in Peru, and he asked me, why are you here? What is it that you want to receive? I'm like, I want this pain to be gone. And he looked at me and he's like, why would you want to do that? Jess, I wanted to punch him in the face. If he wasn't a holy man, I would have punched him right in the face. And I think I even said the F word. I was like, you know? And he goes, let me ask you a question. He said, he's first of all, I want to say something. Pain is still present because it hasn't taught you what it has come to teach you. You're still not listening. You haven't moved through what it is that it wants to teach you. And I want to ask you a really profound question. This is when my healing shifted in this disease. He said, I'd like you to think 3 of the most painful experiences of your life. Maybe it was loss, maybe it was something that, and of course, the separation of my husband and I at one point, all these things came up. And he said, in any of those, did any of those not teach you something and bring you to where you are now? Well, I mean, you would have thought a million gazillion light bulbs went off because I was
Yeah.
like, well, my marriage is the best it's ever been, current day, and it wouldn't be had we not gone through what we went through. The loss of friends. I had several people pass on in my life, and God, I learned so much from them while they were here, and I'm still learning from them now. And the most painful pieces, even childhood painful pieces, things that I once used as excuses or blame, I now use as my greatest assets. They are my greatest gifts. Would I have preferred it may have gone a little different? Yeah, that's my human side. And though, had it not, my life would not be the same. My life would not be the same.
When you share that, I get goosebumps because I think that you feel the same way that I do, and you can add more to this if you feel you have more to add. But I think it's important for people to know that it's perfectly okay to feel sad and angry and scared and anxious, but it's all meant to teach you something and to not allow yourself to just stay in that, but to move through it and forward from it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it also, from personal experience, can feel really easy and be hard to see those things that happened at such a young age are something
Mm-hmm.
that are meant for you to learn from because you're just so young and innocent, and you can feel like you had no control over those things happening, and you probably didn't.
Mm-hmm.
But it's still an opportunity for you to gain so much strength from anything.
One of the things that I do on a regular basis is when anything comes to surface, I get my hand on my heart and I just ask God, I ask my soul, what is it that you want me to learn in this? What is it that you want me to see? And I come back to that story and I use it as a theme in my yoga class often. There's a childhood story called I'm Going on a Bear Hunt. And you know, we all have things in nature that symbolize different things in our life. And these kids are going on a bear hunt, right? And they're all jolly and they're good. We're going on a bear hunt. And they're going along and they're doing their thing. And they're like, oh no, mud. Well, we've had things in our life that are like stepping through mud, right? And they stand there and they look at it and they go, well, we can't go over it. We can't go under it, but we can go through it. And then you get to the other side. And I guarantee you, as you're trudging through the mud, you're going to pick up something that strengthens you or something you wouldn't have had that's before you for your journey ahead. And so I always ask myself, first of all, I get into gratitude, 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 gratitude. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I don't like this. I don't like it. I'm angry. I'm hurt. I really figure out what's under, because when fear comes up, there's 20 other emotions underneath it that really are leading to the fear.
Yeah.
And so I get in, how am I feeling? What am I truly feeling? What does this lead back to? What story is this triggering? And then I go, oh, okay, now I know. And then I'm able to feel into it. And I say, thank you, thank you, thank you for bringing this to my awareness. I'm so grateful. I know I'm going to learn. Please open up my heart for me to see clearly, for me to receive the whispers and messages that I'm intended to see, because I know that this is for me. And I know that how I show up in this is going to give somebody else permission down the line to show up and be permissive to be who they are in that situation. And if I don't know, if nothing comes up, one of the tips or things that you had mentioned, what is the story I'm telling myself? The story I'm telling myself is so and so did this to me and it made me feel this way. And then you come back and you're like, no, they didn't do it to me. They don't make me feel this way. This is what has come up with me. This is what has activated. And then it's the truth behind it. What is the truth? What are you feeling right now? Well, I'm feeling like I'm not seen. And then you forgive yourself. I forgive myself for believing that I'm unseen. The truth is, I get to authentically be seen however I choose, and really detaching myself from the human experience and really try to sit. We're all divine beings living in a human experience, right? We're all just trying to make our way through. And instead of trying to figure it out with my mind, I really get into the feeling sensation, and I think I shared this with you. From the heart to the head, it's only 18 inches, but it is the freaking longest journey of your life. And, you know, intuition is connected to the gut, right? And so when you are, that's why they call it a gut feeling, right? Intuition, gut, you know, listen to your gut, listen to your intuition, and I think that's also leading back to the alcohol thing. You lose all perspective sometimes, and that you're just not clear. And what do they say? It takes like 7 days to clear out of your system, or 4 days. I don't know whether I'm confusing marijuana or, but it does bring a cloud over. And so I just know that I spent the majority of my life masked, and more for protection, not to disillusion or
Yeah.
um, mislead anybody. We're all just surviving, and a lot of times it's unconscious. It's really unconscious. When things maybe, I know a lot of people that can't remember their childhoods at all.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you've repressed it,
Yeah.
and some people like it better that way because they think they're functioning, and
Yeah.
I don't like to go digging. I'm not a digger, but here's the thing. Some scar us, blocked energy in the heart center. Here's the thing. Whether those things that are unconscious, when they're there, whether it's good or bad, they come up against that blockage. And either way, it doesn't get through. We don't get to go on our bear hunt. It just keeps going through. And until those repressed things are brought to light, there is that darkness in there. And those are those shadows, right? And it's deep, deep work. I'm not saying it's easy. And there are a lot of things I have faced with myself that I'm like, ew, there's a lot of mistakes I've made with friends. There's a lot of, we do it. But again, there really aren't mistakes.
But there's
There
there's
aren't
lessons in that too.
There's lessons in all of it. And people are either willing to walk with you or they need to go on their way.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you touched on a little bit how you were the hard body and the hard facade, and you were living this life this way as a fitness instructor, and you were so successful. You mentioned about being on TV, and then you found yourself with a form of disease.
Mm-hmm.
And, I know you talked about the fact that the shaman had said to you, "Why do you want this pain to go away?" But can you share a little bit more? Because you don't resonate with disease now. Can you share a little
Mm-hmm.
bit more about your story on how you moved through that particular
Mm-hmm.
experience?
Yeah. We I don't talk about it much because I truly believe, but I also feel it is to be talked about because there may be somebody out there that may be in the same situation or it resonates with them. And when you are given a diagnosis based on ancestral lineage and so forth, you have two directions you get to go. You can buy into it, or you can choose to stand in your power and be part of your own healing journey. And again, I honor and respect what everyone believes, but I truly believe that God lives within me, giving me the divine capabilities of self-healing. And I love and honor Western medicine, and I also feel it has its place. And I also feel I have my own medicine. You have your own medicine. And it's not until we realize that we are able to be part of our own healing journey and capable of healing ourselves. You know, my the offering was take all this medication and it's incurable, and then you see your father who his life has been drastically impacted by this same thing that you're told you have. First of all, I will never say I have anything. The moment I say I have something, I'm accepting it and I'm allowing it and I'm giving it power. Never. You will hear me say I'm living currently with. Um, it is something that comes in and out of remission, but yet it also your body is your greatest teacher and it is your greatest messenger. And so when it reactivates, when I come out of remission, it's because I wasn't listening, or I'm doing too much, or I've got stress. It's totally induced by stress. Your body responds. And, so did it take me out for a bit? Sure did. Um, and it comes in and out, and it reminds me. And it's interesting. It's been a long journey. It's been probably, again, time for me. It doesn't exist, so I'm horrible with time. Time and directions. It's because I live in La La Land. Like, what's 2 years? I say has been 5 years, or what's been 5 years? I say 2 years. I'm just going to say, for the sake of what I think is 6 years. Um, I needed for it to completely immobilize me in order for me, one, to be grateful for the body that I have and what it's capable of doing. I did not appreciate my body. It was a tool versus a vessel that housed my soul. It is now my temple body. Everything I provide it, everything I do with it comes from an honoring space.
And
Not to say I go ahead.
that's so interesting to hear somebody say that, and I'm sure there's somebody out there that needs to hear this. You were a fitness instructor. You were the embodiment of what most people would think is perfect health, and that you took the best care of your body, and that you ate the best
Mhm.
food to have that kind of result. So, if you wouldn't mind sharing maybe just a little bit deeper how you feel like you weren't taking the best care and it was just a tool compared to now.
I I lived to work versus worked. No, I worked, how do you say that?
You live to
You know what I'm
work and
trying to, yeah, yeah. I live to work. Also hiding, but I'm going to share something that not too many people know because it's a little strange, but that's okay. So am I. I fully embody my weirdness. Um, when the onset of HSP, hereditary spastic paraplegia, um, came into play, um, our dreams tell great stories, right? I had this really crazy dream, and it was totally dramatic, in all aspects, but it has to sometimes be dramatic in my world. Again, Disney dancer. Um, I was in the throes of it. And I mean, I'm talking just like walking was difficult. My husband was having to help me get out of bed, and there's not a whole lot of people that really saw any of that because we had left Pennsylvania at that point. And so I really didn't have a lot of people or support that really knew what I was going through besides my family. And I don't even think they knew the extent of it. And first of all, I refused to go on medication. I went on one medication that was an absolute, and the rest I was determined because I will tell you something about me, Jess. If I put my mind to something, I will do it. And my family can tell you that. But I had this dream, and I remember it plain as day. Um, I was at my own funeral.
oh wow.
And yeah, and it's funny. I literally was like this, just this head, like over top, like, this head over top, like watching it all. And the room was full. And some people had faces, some didn't, but I was really looking at the back of their heads. But my funeral was full of clients.
Wow.
Everybody that I may have encountered in my fitness profession. And the pastor was up and people, he asked if people wanted to speak. And I know also this again, I know this isn't completely true or all that people would say about me, but it was to wake me up. And person by person got up and this is what they said. Ah, Mindy helped me lose 10 pounds. Mindy was the best personal trainer ever. Mindy kicked my ass. Mindy, da, 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 da. And it was all related to what I did and who I thought I was.
Mm.
And no real deep personal connections. Now, did I have that in my life? Yeah, I still have like a handful of really close friends. Um, but I never really totally let them in either. There's probably one that I think at the time really got me, and gets me. But the whole point of this story was, and I literally remember, my head bobbing up and down back here going, this is not what I want my legacy to be. Like, I want to be known for more than what I did. What about how I made people feel? What about like, so it really impacted me that I was in my own way. Like, I was in my own way because all I was giving was this small piece of myself. And I was just determined. I'm like, this is not how I'm going out. I am not going out like this. And so I realized that what the gift I was given was that physicality was taken away from me because I was no longer, and I will tell you, is my body, first of all, I'm 50 and I don't care, but am I in the same shape that I was in? No, because honestly, Jessica, I am just now starting to be mobile. People look at the outside and they're like, yeah, but she teaches all these classes. I use my mouth. Why do you think I got into life coaching? I use my mouth. That was actually really one of the reasons I got into coaching, was because of fear that I wasn't going to have a body, that I was going to be in a walker, because that's what I'm seeing, my grandmother, my grandfather. So I bought into it, right? That fear, I bought into it. It's not why I'm in coaching now. I mean, it's a passion. I love it. Tied in both my psych background and then also the physical background. But it was really like, okay, I got to think of the future.
But your
I got to
fear
think about
taught you something.
yeah, absolutely. And, you know, I'm just coming out of a flare up now. And I know why. Um, and when I'm doing too much, created an app and I started teaching more online. I've been teaching online for 4 years or so from COVID. And when you teach online, you can't just use your mouth. You have to physically do the actual movement. And here's the thing, everybody's like, when I'm teaching in person, they're like, oh my God, you make it so easy. You're so strong. I do like two of something or one. I know I'm giving away all my secrets here today. Um, and, but it's different. And so recently I have made a decision that I have to shift some of my online classes and teaching. My body is saying, and here's the thing, the profanity of being in tune with yourself and where the pain lands in my body is a huge message. If you've got pain in your neck and shoulders, you're carrying other people's burdens or yourself or your own burdens. Low back, financial or instability or not feeling cared for. Your body keeps the score. There's all these stories about, right side pain, that's your masculine side, left side pain, your feminine. Like, it all has a story. It all has meaning. We just choose not to listen. We just and old Mindy would have pushed through, sucked it up, probably masked it with something. Um, and so it is also my greatest, greatest gift. It's how I choose to live, though.
Yeah, I don't know. I hope this gives you something, but when we went on the retreat, I called it a yoga treat before I got there. I thought that that's what
Hmm.
it was. We were just
Hmm.
gonna go out
Hmm.
into the desert and do a bunch of yoga all the time. And it was not that really, but I did, and not to say that I didn't get a lot from the yoga teaching that you gave me, but I got so much more from you,
Hmm.
from everything else, from, the breathing techniques that you provided, from the insight, from the self-reflection that you allowed us to have and the space that you provided. So from me to you as a friend, your gift is absolutely not just a physical thing, and that you give so
Mm.
much more.
Mm. Thank you. I received that. And you're not the first person. And if I could, you know, you're not the first person to say, well, this, and not in a derogatory way, but this isn't a yoga retreat. Well, yes, it is. Because here's the thing, you did deep, deep yoga practices. We have westernized the meaning of yoga and we have made it all about movement and asana. Yoga truly is inner size, not exercise. When we can deeply yoke and come together as our truest selves using the medicine of our body, that is yoga. It is connection to its deepest level and core. The movements, they're just movements. Um, the deeper movement that people are missing. And I'm not saying that yoga as a physical practice isn't beneficial. Sure, it is. People get tons of benefit from it. However, whoever's listening, I would encourage you to allow the asana to find you at a deep level. What does it feel like to be in your body? What does it feel like to honor your breath in unity and in sync with the movement? Stillness and reflection deeply within, honoring yourself, listening to yourself, that is yoga. It is contentment. It's just so much. I could go on and on and on. So when people often say, we didn't do much yoga, it's just trickery. You did a whole hell of a lot of yoga. You just moved your body, mind, and soul to a whole deeper level. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think that you have really shown me and other people that have met you how important it is to honor things that you have been through in your life and honor the person that you were yesterday or years ago.
Mm-hmm.
And even though that may not be who you are today, it provided you a lesson to get where you are or to where you're going
Mm-hmm.
and to be open to that change. And I really thank you so much for sharing your story. And I know that there's so many people out there that are going to resonate with bits of it
Mm-hmm.
or all of it.
If I could just finish up with one thing, because you brought something to my heart space. Yoga in alignment with my belief and my faith, which there's so much controversy out there. That's a whole other podcast.
Yeah.
Um, Yoga saved my life, and not the movement. The deep inner connection, the soulful connection, the honoring of my temple body, the breath, because there was times I couldn't move, Jess. I could not physically move, but I could move my breath. I could connect with my heart and my mind. And if anything, for those who may be scared by the conditioning of what they think yoga is or what yoga represents, it is not a religion. It is not a religion. And I know a lot of people have looked at me and have thought that I have walked away from my faith. That is your perception. I actually am stronger in relationship with God, more so than I've ever been. And I am grateful that that was provided by God, because it ultimately, whether you have that faith or not and that belief, everything comes from God. And God within me has allowed me to just maneuver, navigate, and manage where I am today. Thank you for just holding this space for me. You are beyond lovely, and I feel honored to be a witness. And I don't walk in front of you, I walk right beside you. And there are things that you lead the way in my life just by you being who you are. So thank you, thank you, thank you from the bottom of my heart.
Thank you, Mindy. Thank you so much for sharing. And thank you for being so open to support the passion that I have and to be a part of the event that's coming up. And I think it's so exciting. I'm so excited for there's so much more that you can get from an in-person event. So I'm very much looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to having you there.
Want to learn more from Mindy? Follow Radiant Vita on Facebook and Instagram. Are you interested in attending a wellness retreat? Mindy is hosting Adventure Within and Beyond, a Montana sisterhood retreat in August of 2025. What's included? Daily yoga, meditation, breathwork, and sound healing. A guided day adventure at Glacier National Park. Locally sourced meals and snacks. Airport and local transportation. Plus, time for free self-exploration. Further inquiries can be made through Facebook, Instagram, or directly at mindy@radiantvita.com.
Did this episode of Bold Foundations inspire you? Or can you relate? Maybe you have your own story to tell.
Whether you want to share with me privately or you would like to be a guest on the podcast, reach out by going to boldfoundations.my.canva.site or follow us on Instagram at bold_foundations. And don't forget to leave us a review wherever you listen to your podcasts. Thanks for listening.